Welcome to this chess video, everyone. So as you can see here, this is actually a voiceover. So what you're watching now is me about to play Untitled Tuesday. It's mostly live footage. I've used a little bit of editing only when they think really long, but for the most part, I wanted to keep it pretty realistic, very minimal editing, and give you a good glance into my thought process. So let's just get right started with the game. We'll see how this goes, and I'll try to not use arrows. We'll try and show more or less what my mindset during the game is, and see how it goes from here. Okay, so they start with d4, we play d5. Everything's pretty standard so far. Knight f3, I'll play knight f6, be flexible. They play the London system, and against this I play c5. It's an ambitious line I've studied. All of this is still opening theory here. Queen b6, and then queen b3 is the main move. I play c4. Trading queens is usually bad there, so that would open up my a file. They don't usually want to do that, even if I have doubled pawns. They can't take my bishop here because queen takes b2, and then their a1 rook is trapped. All this is still opening theory, so this isn't really new to me. I'm just kind of sitting here and kind of playing my own game, see where they vary. Queen c1 is correct. They do find that move. And so now, I think probably just go after the bishop pair. Knight h5 looks fine. They'll probably come back to g3. They do. And yeah, all of this is pretty standard. Probably about the point my opening theory is ending. e6, I think, and just keep continuing to develop my bishop. I don't really necessarily want to take on g3, I don't think. Just because it's a little bit early. Usually that's better once they castle, or at least delayed as much as possible, because sometimes after taking on g3, they have h captures g3, and then they have a half-open file against my king, which is almost always castled kingside. So in this position here, I spent a little while thinking where to put my bishop, and eventually I'm thinking bishop d6, and that's why I brought my queen back. That also clears room for my b pawn to possibly go to b5 and b4. Okay, but now knight to e5. And now I'm just wondering, taking on g3 and then capturing on e5. Like, can I just get away with this, right? Because if they recapture, well, I mean, I'll pre-move this here because they might capture on c6 just to avoid doubled pawns. But really, if they capture h takes g, they have doubled pawns on the g file. And then I might double their pawns on the e file. This just seems like they have a little bit too many weaknesses. I'm kind of surprised they didn't capture on c6. I mean, now I think probably bishop c5 looks strong, but I'm wondering if maybe queen c7 first, just to provoke f4, and then bishop c5 is stronger. Yeah, really strong here. I think probably they just have to play knight f3. That just seems like a normal way to continue. You really don't want to play king to f2 or king e2, because then you lose castling rights. Yeah, I think that our e-pawn is actually kind of hard to hold here. So we'll see what they come up with. So just thinking here what they'll play. Again, I think probably knight f3. Maybe bishop e2 at some point. They may even try castling queenside. Okay, this is very strange here. I think I'll just take the material. Maybe they were just too cramped and they figured they might as well just sacrifice to try and get some play. But here I think we just hang on to the material and we're fine. I'll probably get some rook to the d file. I might also add more pressure to e3 again. Really, I'm debating between which direction to castle here. Probably kingside is most logical, but then is the open h file a problem? I think that half open file is not really a big deal because my bishop on f5 is defending h7. So maybe I can just castle kingside and it's fine. Then probably double rooks on the open d file. Yeah, I think this looks pretty standard. See what they do. I mean, I'm probably expecting something like queen d2, try and fight for the file, maybe rook d1. It's actually kind of difficult to find good moves for them here already. I feel like we just have a nice position, we're up a pawn, we seem to have the better play. So we'll just see what they come up with. They do play queen d2. And so now I'm wondering if I should go queen b6 or a rook to d8. I think queen b6 because it's just forcing, because I'm threatening to capture e2, or sorry, e3. And if they defend, then I get a rook to the d file. So it looks like we'll go for this here. They just moved their queen over. So now I'm thinking, can I capture on e3? If I take on e3, there might be some other ideas. I don't have enough yet. Maybe I can double rooks on the d file. I'm also noticing they might have queen h5 in some lines. Maybe trying to put pressure of checkmate on h7. but we do have our bishop there guarding it from f5. So I don't think I have to play g6 just to keep the queen out of h5. Also, bishop g6 might be okay, but then I have to worry about g4 and possibly f5. So I think bishop to e4, just to kind of make sure that pawn doesn't move on e3. I know that right now it was pinned, but might not always be a pin there. And now this is actually kind of strange. This might be just a waste of a move for them. Bishop e7 is the natural retreat, but I really am considering capturing on e3. I'm trying to see if e3 still works. Bishop captures e3, queen captures e3, maybe rook to d2. They can't take with the queen because the queen is pinned in that line. I think it works, so we'll try it. Yeah, so they can't come up to f3 with their king because they would lose the queen. So, I mean, I think they're just losing their queen here. They come back, I get the queen. I think the king is just forced to f1, and then it's just checkmate with queen to f2. Okay, they do resign. And so I'm noticing by the analysis here that actually my rook d2 is clever, but it didn't actually work. Because instead of that, they could have played bishop to e2, and then they actually would have been holding there. But I didn't see that in the game, obviously. So now I'm just sitting here waiting for the next Untitled Tuesday round. Now in this video, I only wanted to go over maybe 2 games. Untitled Tuesday is actually 11 rounds, but I don't want to make the YouTube video too long. If this video is popular enough, then I might go over a video or several videos where I might go over all 11 games, maybe 1 round. That would be kind of cool. Like all 11 rounds I go over in 1 video, something like that in the future. But for now, we'll just do 2 games, see how it goes. So for this one, they do spend a few minutes making their first move, but okay, we'll play the Carol Khan. I actually originally got over 2,000 rapid on chess.com by playing e4, e5 as black. So completely fine here. We switched to the Carol Khan repertoire, and I'm happy with it. But e5 is also completely playable. So here we're still in theory. Bishop d3 is common. c4 is the pan-off attack, so that's fine as well. Yeah, all this is still opening theory. Yeah, so e6 is normal here. They'll probably just castle, but we'll see. Queen a4. Okay, that's a strange move. Made a little dubious. I'm already wondering how to exploit this. I'm really considering capturing an f3 and then knight captures d4 to win a pawn. But in that case, my knight is pinned, so I'll play queen d7 to unpin. And now they just castle. I think I'm actually just winning a pawn here, right? Like, bishop captures f3, bishop captures f3, knight captures d4, c captures d5. And I think we're holding there. We can capture back the knight, and everything is fine because we have the in-between move, knight captures f3 check. So I think that's fine here. I think we're just winning the d-pawn. We capture. Queen captures on d7, we'll trade, and then we'll capture on f3. Yeah, I think we're just up a pawn in that line. Yeah, so maybe our opponent miscalculated or didn't see as far. We'll just capture on d5, and I think we're simply winning a pawn. I mean, I would like that pawn not to be isolated going into the endgame, but it is a clean pawn up, so worst case scenario, we give it back, the material will just be equal. Okay, so now I have to worry about how to defend this isolated pawn. Yeah, here I'm really considering b6, just so I can prepare bishop c5, and if they trade bishops, then it's no longer an isolated pawn. So I think their last move is actually a little questionable. King e6 is kind of exploitative because it kind of forces their rook to come back. I think they should have played the a rook to d1 instead of the f rook, and then I wouldn't have had king to e6 because then rook f to e1 with their other rook on d1, you know, that puts pressure everywhere. Whereas here, you know, their a rook is kind of out of play, you know, and I feel like we're making progress here. I don't want to come back to d7, I was considering, but that's just repetition. That might let them off the hook a little easily. I might just go king f5 here. It's usually a good idea to come up in the endgame. I can defend my d-pawn with rook to d8, possibly bishop c5, and then get my other rook into the game. Yeah, so rook d8 here I think is pretty standard. See what happens now. I kind of like my position. We're up a pawn and we're doing all right. Okay, so I don't want to go bishop c5 yet, I don't think, because they'll take on g7. So let's just play f6, play patiently. They're probably trying to double. I'll just play the bishops here. If they capture, then that just gets me connected pawns, so my d-pawn's no longer doubled. Have a little extra support. So we'll see what they do. So they do trade. Okay, now rook to e7. That's actually a good move. I did not see that move, because now they're forking the g7 and a7 pawn. I think I'll save a7, because now if they take on g7, I might have rook h to g8, exchange off rooks at some point. I don't want to do it now, because if I do it now, they can trade rooks and then win d5 with check. My king moves, then they'll also win c4. So I think king to e6 stops a rook from coming to e7, but also defends my d-pawn. Now, if they give a check, I'll probably just go king to d6 and then start running to c5. Well, sorry, c6 and then b5. Okay, so I have to be a little careful here. Don't want to allow rook 1 to e6, so I'll give a check, forcing them to f1, and then I'll decide. And they don't go to f1. I think there's actually a little bit of an error here. They go to the corner, but now their king is cut off in the endgame. So that might be an inaccuracy that's going to hurt them long term. So I think here we'll probably just want to go like king c6, rook d6, and if they give a check on e6, we'll just trade off a pair of rooks. And I think my d-pawn is very strong there. It's a strong pass pawn, really good support also because it's no longer isolated. So if they trade rooks, I really like my g8 rook cutting off their king. That's going to make this endgame a little easier for me. Okay, so here material is equal, but I don't see a way to defend the a pawn. I was considering king up, but then I realized if they play the check, then I can go king to e5. Right, so might as well push the pass pawn on d5 to d4. Pass pawns are meant to be pushed, and I'm not really giving up a tempo in that line, because if I push and then they give a check and then I spend a tempo to move my king, it's kind of like saving myself because I got the extra pawn move. So yeah, I think we just come up. If our king ever takes on f2, then we're just threatening rook to g1 checkmate. So their rook has to stay on the back rank. They actually can't come up. We'll just push, that's fine. Again, they can't take my c-pawn because then rook to g1 is checkmate. So we'll see what they come up with here. They also have a kind of low time, so we'll see what they do. I don't want to blunder my pawn with check, so let's defend the pawn first. Yeah, I just push the pawn, just simply winning. Okay, there's no checkmate. Yeah, we'll just take the rook. Okay, it looks like a little bit of lag there, but it looks like we'll probably win on time. Yeah, but it was a winning position nevertheless. So, all right, so I mean, that was kind of my thought process. It actually felt like it kind of went by kind of quickly, actually. So here I'm just waiting for the next round, and obviously this was only 2 rounds of the tournament we showed. I got 5.5 points, so usually I get 6.5, maybe 7 in a good one, but, you know, it is what it is. See if this idea was a useful idea for you. Thanks for stopping by. You know, I'll see you in the next chess video.